You know that exact moment, right? We've all dreaded it. You're sitting there, maybe in a meeting, maybe just at a family dinner, and out of absolutely nowhere, boom, someone throws a deeply disrespectful comment right at you. The room goes dead quiet. Every single eye shifts your way. It's a classic social ambush. And, well, if you're like most of us, your brain completely scrambles. You just kind of freeze, and then you end up replaying the entire interaction in the shower 3 days later, coming up with the absolute perfect comeback. Painfully relatable, isn't it? Well, welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to completely upgrade how you handle these exact moments. Okay, so let's dive right into how we're going to do this. First, we'll break down the social ambush, then unmask the control game, move into level 1, smile and pivot, look at escalating with boundaries and exits, and finally reach the master level, total immunity. Think of this agenda like a progression tree. You know, like a skill tree in a video game that's going to totally upgrade your social operating system from basic defenses all the way up to absolute total immunity.
So, Section 1, the social ambush. We really need to define what we're dealing with here before we can actually defeat it. And look, we all know the culprits, right? It's usually, say, Chad in accounting, who somehow thinks arrogant bullying is a charming personality trait. Or, oh man, maybe it's that one uncle who lobs a deeply offensive remark right across Thanksgiving table and then immediately hides behind, hey, I'm just joking. You know the type. They use it like a get-out-of-jail-free card to just be completely rude.
So when that ambush actually hits, you are forced into this split-second choice. Do you make a scene or do you stay quiet? And I want to validate how incredibly anxiety-inducing this is. Why? Because our default human reactions are almost always losing strategies. Think about it. If you explode in anger, right, and make a huge scene, you end up looking unstable. If you give one of those nervous, awkward laughs just to pretend you're lighthearted, you kind of abandon your own dignity. And if you just stay perfectly quiet, turning into this emotionless statue while you're literally boiling inside, you just look like a helpless target accepting the disrespect. Every single one of these reactions costs you something.
And this brilliantly illustrates why our goal today is completely different. Because let's be real, our very first instinct is usually revenge, isn't it? We want to find that incredibly witty one-liner to just crush them. But revenge is exhausting. It literally forces you to stoop down to their level and lets them live rent-free in your head. So our system, it's about mental judo. Instead of matching their force, we're going to use their own negative momentum right back against them. The goal here is to just gracefully step aside, let them stumble over their own massive ego, and leave you entirely unshakable. All right, moving on to Section 2, unmasking the control game. Look, before we can go unlocking your new defensive skills, we really have to understand the psychology and the specific attack patterns of the person coming at you. Because make absolutely no mistake, this is not just random bad behavior. It is a highly specific, calculated game that they're playing with you. Now, what's really interesting about this is how it exposes the attacker's true motive. They are launching what's known as a control test. This isn't them searching for some truth. No, it's a carefully laid trap. It's like they're fishing. They cast out a line, they bait it with a targeted insult, and then they just sit back to watch if you're going to bite. They have this desperate, almost pathetic need for control. They literally want your face to flush. They want to hear your voice crack. Because if you respond with anger, you're essentially handing them this shiny trophy that says, "Congratulations, you have power over my emotions." Which brings us to the absolute golden rule of social conflict. Whoever provokes you owns you. I mean, just think about the gravity of that for a second. The exact millisecond you allow someone else to dictate your emotional state, you've lost. You have willingly handed them the key to your own cage, and you've locked yourself inside. So for sure, the very first step to winning is realizing you have to completely stop playing their game altogether. Okay, so what exactly does this game look like? Well, there are 3 main traps they're going to try to push you into. First up is the emotional reaction bait. This is them just trying to make you visibly angry. Then you've got the justification trap. This is huge. The second you start nervously explaining yourself, going, well, actually, if you look at the data, you are validating their attack. You're accepting their premise. And in the social court of opinion, the person who's justifying always looks guilty. Finally, the third trap, the awkward laughter gambit. This one is probably the most insidious. Laughing at a joke made at your own expense, it communicates that your boundaries just don't exist. You end up sacrificing your own dignity for this fake, flimsy sense of social harmony. Don't fall for the frantic bait. All right, now that we know the traps, let's start building your defense. Section 3, Level 1, Smile and Pivot. We are officially equipping your arsenal now. Think of this as your baseline shield.
It is absolutely perfect for those moments when someone throws a sudden, unprovoked jab about your competence or your character while you're in a group setting. So here is the exact 3-step procedure you're going to deploy. Step 1, the cold smile. Whatever you do, do not get defensive. Instead, you're going to give them this tiny, almost imperceptible lift at the corners of your mouth. It's exactly that dismissive look you'd give a toddler who just proudly showed you a terrible crayon scribble, right? Then, step 2, hold the gaze. Just let a beat of absolute silence do all the heavy lifting for you. And finally, step 3, the pivot. You simply turn away and smoothly move on.
Let's look at what that pivot actually sounds like in the real world. You just turn and say, "Anyway, Sarah, what were you saying about the quarterly reports?" Boom. By doing this, you are sending a devastatingly powerful silent message. Their comment was so incredibly insignificant, it didn't even register to you as an interruption. You literally leave the attacker standing there, awkwardly holding their own conversational grenade, completely dismissed, while you remain completely and firmly in control of the room.
But hey, what happens when just ignoring them isn't quite enough? That brings us to section 4, escalating boundaries and exits. Because if disrespect crosses a really clear line, or if it's persistent, that basic shield we just talked about, it's not going to hold. You have to level up. You can't just ignore it anymore. You have to apply some surgical precision to stop it dead in its tracks. Let's circle back to that uncle scenario for a second. The key here is you do not call him out in front of everyone and create a massive family drama. No. You wait until things are calm, you pull him aside one-on-one, and in a low, completely neutral tone, you deliver this exact script. "Hey, I know you don't mean anything by it, but I don't appreciate jokes about my career. Let's keep that off the table." Notice the vibe there? This isn't an argument, it's an instructive coaching moment, and you're delivering it with absolutely zero anger. So the really crucial point here is understanding the massive difference between these two approaches. Setting a boundary is never ever a negotiation. You are not asking for their permission to be respected. Doing that is weak, and it just invites a debate. Instead, you are informing them of a rule. It's just a calm, firm statement of fact. If they're a decent person, they'll apologize and they'll stop. But if they get extremely defensive, well, their reaction has just revealed their true toxic character to you. And if they do reveal that toxic character, or let's say you're just in an environment where disrespect is totally normalized, you deploy level 3, the strategic exit. Remember this, your presence is a privilege, it is not a right. This is honestly the ultimate flex. If your boundary gets ignored, you don't announce your departure. You don't storm out in a huge huff. You simply finish your drink, politely excuse yourself, and you just walk away. It requires literally zero confrontation, but man, it powerfully demonstrates that you value your own peace vastly more than you value their company. And now we've finally arrived at section 5, the master level, total immunity. Look, you've learned the shield so far, the smile, the pivot, the boundary, the exit, but this final stage, this is the ultimate cheat code of our entire explainer. It is a fundamental paradigm shift that moves you completely beyond just playing defense and upgrades you to absolute bulletproof immunity. I really want you to let this truth sink in. An insult is never about you. It is a confession. When someone mocks your ambition, or maybe your clothes, or your intelligence, they aren't actually describing you at all, not even a little bit. What they're doing is picking up a giant megaphone and broadcasting their own deep insecurities, their own jealousy, and their own fears to the rest of the world. Their words, they're just a mirror reflecting their own inner chaos. To really lock this concept into place, let's think about the jaundice metaphor. Imagine a person suffering from jaundice walks right up to you and tells you that you look terribly yellow. Would you get defensive? Of course not. You wouldn't argue with them or suddenly feel insecure about your skin tone. You'd immediately realize that they are literally seeing the world through the filter of their own illness. Disrespect works exactly the same way, guys. It is a high-definition look into their character flaws, not yours. And that brings us to the mastermind. When you truly internalize this, you undergo this massive transformation. You become the observer. You are completely removed from being the target. Suddenly, their insults actually become gifts. They're like these free diagnostic reports on their mental state, rather than weapons that can actually hurt you. You can literally just let this secret little smile bloom inside of you because you realize they are just frantically shadowboxing with their own demons. There was never actually a fight to begin with. So as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with this final vital question. Will you keep fighting their exhausting war, or will you just step aside and leave them shadowboxing all by themselves? The true goal here isn't to beat them in an argument. It's to use this mental judo to make them, and their toxic opinions utterly and completely irrelevant.